Okay, welcome to the weekly shir of the Zer Shimshon, and it's Chavtes Adar Aleph. It's Friday. I got a little earlier this morning, this week, but I'm gonna make it a shorter one. So it's a Parshas VaYakhel, and this is also Shabbos Vorchim and Parshas Shekalim. Anyway. So it says, VaYakhel Moshe es kol hadas b'nei Yisrael v'yomer aleim Eila hadvarim asher tziva Hashem la'asei seisam. Moshe assembled the entire assembly of the children of Israel, and he said to them, "These are the things that Hashem commanded to do them." Now, Rashi comments that this assembly, right, this gathering of all the people, you can't imagine. I mean, I don't even, when I was at the Siyam Shas, one of the early in the 90s, I think I went to New York. There were so many people there, I can't imagine anymore. And even the Metro Stadium, how they can hold 80,000, I think, people. It's nothing. We're talking about 10 million people. How do you gather 10 million people at the one place? I have no idea. Anyway, how did they hear him? They didn't have a ramkol. Okay. Anyway, the kids are all these things. Maybe you can ask Moshe Rabbeinu when he comes soon to help us out of this gullus. Okay, so Rashi comments that this assembly happened on the day after Yom Kippur. Okay, when Moshe Rabbeinu was descended from the mountain after getting atonement for the sin of the golden calf. The next pasuk, Moshe commands the people regarding Shabbos. Why was the first warning about keeping the mitzvahs directed towards Shabbos? Okay, there are so many mitzvahs. Why was this one specifically chosen as Moshe's focus? The Gemara explains in Gemara in Shabbos 118b that the Bnei Yisrael did not completely keep their first Shabbos. And this weakness on their part was the reason that the nations were able to dominate them later on. Yeah, those things that you think that are not significant right now, but they always have consequences later on. The Gemara further states that anyone who keeps Shabbos with all its laws, even if he worships idols like the generation of Enosh, will be forgiven. And there's a reason why it's the Dor Enosh, because they used the intermediaries. They knew God was available. It was in the heavens, but they used these intermediaries like the astrologers do, they were pleading with them to supplicate. But, it's not like a true 100% Avodah Zarah in a true sense of the word. So, but even substitute Avodah Zarah is Avodah Zarah. So even though they worship idols like the generation of Enosh, they will be forgiven. Keeping Shabbos is that powerful. Elsewhere, the Gemara points out that Bnei Yisrael would not have sinned with the golden calf, no other nation, if Bnei Yisrael would not have sinned with the golden calf, no other nation would have been able to dominate them ever. And that's the Gemara in Avodah Zarah 5a. Why? It says regarding the luchos that the words of the 10 commandments were chorus. Chorus means engraved on the tablets. The Chazal explained that we can read the term not as chorus, as engraved, but cherus, but it means freedom, implying that by keeping the Torah, Bnei Yisrael were free from enslavement by others. However, when they sinned with the golden calf, they lost their right to freedom from the other nations. We know that Moshe Rabbeinu took up the nation's cause before Hashem. He was pleading to Hashem, begging and entreating him to forgive the Jews for their sin. In the end, Hashem finally forgave them on Yom Kippur. Moshe Rabbeinu descended from heaven that very next day, and the very first thing he did when he returned was warn them about keeping Shabbos properly. So why was it so vital that Bnei Yisrael keep Shabbos right then? Moshe Rabbeinu wanted them to understand something important. If Bnei Yisrael had just kept Shabbos in the first place, there would never have been a need for him to work so hard defending them. and they would never have needed Yom Kippur to bring about their forgiveness. They would not have needed prayers. They would not have been in danger. As the Gemara in Shabbos 119a states, someone who keeps Shabbos in the proper fashion will be forgiven even if he worships idols. Okay? If Bnei Yisrael would have just kept Shabbos, they would have been forgiven for the sin of the golden calf. Amazing. However, they didn't keep Shabbos and were involved with the golden calf. And despite the fact that they did receive a certain measure of forgiveness through Moshe Rabbeinu's defense for them, the nations were still able to send them into exile because they had lost their eternal freedom through their sins. The only way you can protect yourselves now for the future, Moshe Rabbeinu said to Bnei Yisrael, is by keeping Shabbos kilchosai, with all of its laws. Since the mitzvah of Shabbos brings redemption, as we are taught that if Bnei Yisrael would only manage to keep 2 Shabbos, they would be immediately redeemed. Gemara Shabbos 118b. And that is the reason Moshe Rabbeinu discussed the mitzvah of Shabbos as soon as he returned from heaven, because he wanted them to know that it was this mitzvah, out of all others, that would protect them from here on. Moshe Rabbeinu therefore informed them of even prior to the construction of the Mishkan. The name Mishkan alludes to the term mashkoin, or a collateral, as Rashi in Shmos says, writes in Pekudei. The word Mishkan is also an allusion to the Beis HaMikdash, which was taken as collateral when it was destroyed for the sins of Klal Yisrael. So Moshe gave Bnei Yisrael a suggestion for rectifying their sins through keeping Shabbos, even before commanding them to build the Mishkan. The merit of fulfilling this great mitzvah possessed the capability of protecting them from being sent into exile and ensuring that the future Beis HaMikdash would not be taken from them as collateral. And I hope everybody has a wonderful Shabbos, and may the schus of keeping Shabbos help us, Klal Yisrael, save us from all of our enemies, and bring back the injured and the kidnapped people from Gaza. May Hashem have rachmanis on us. Okay, keeping Shabbos kilchosai. It's very, very important. All right. So Zayin Gebitz, have a good Shabbos. Kol Tov.